Hey friends, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Donna, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can build an AI voice assistant that you can directly embed on a phone number and use for your own business. This can apply to any business such as hospitality, healthcare, insurance, or real estate. I will take the example of a real estate company and build an assistant that answers property details questions and allow the user to book an inspection time. At the end of the video, you will be able to build one for your own business and enable the power of AI and technology to save time on repetitive tasks and also increase the revenue of your business. To build it, I will be using Vapi, Make.com, and Airtable, and you will find the prompt, the Make blueprints, and Airtable structure in the description of this video. If you want me to build it for you, feel free to send me an email or book a consultation call, and I will be happy to help. You can also leave a comment to tell me what you're building with this technology. Now let's dive into the demo and see the end result. Hi Emily, this is Donna.
Hi Donna, how can I assist you today? Are you looking for property details or would you like to book an inspection?
I would like to get some more information about the property I saw.
Sure, I can help you with that. Could you please provide me with the address of the property you're interested in?
So the address of the property is 44 Chatswood Avenue in Chatswood.
Just a sec. Great, the property at 44 Chatswood Avenue, Chatswood, has 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms and 1 car space.
And is there a swimming pool in the property?
There is no mention of a swimming pool in the property description. Any other questions about the property? Or would you like
Yeah, I would like to book an inspection for the property. What are the available times?
Just a sec. The available inspection times are Saturday, the 13th of July 2024 at 12 p.m. to 12:30 p.m. and Wednesday, 17th of July 2024 at 12 p.m. to 12:30 p.m. Which one would you prefer?
I would like to book for the last one, for the second one.
Give me a moment. The inspection for the property on the 17th of July 2024 at 12 p.m. has been successfully booked. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that's it. Pretty impressive, right? Now, let's see what we have in the Airtable database. As we can see here, there is my name that has been registered with my phone number and also the property ID and the viewing time that I've just said on the phone. Now, if I go to another tab, I can see the list of all the different properties that the real estate offers. And also on the third tab, I can see the transcript of the audio call and all of the different audio call that has been happening for that specific number. I also created into the leads database, I created a view to be able to see all of the different inspections that have been booked by the user. So if I go back into the booking that has been made for the 17th of July, I can directly go here, go to the 17th of July, and I will see the booking right here, the name, the address, and the phone number. Before jumping into the implementation, let's have a look at a diagram for you to understand better the architecture and see how everything fits together. I would also recommend you to take your favorite note tool, whether it's Notion, Apple Note, or a simple notebook, and a glass of water or a cup of tea or coffee, as we'll be diving into each separate tool. Also, if you like this type of content, please leave a thumb up and subscribe to the channel. I will be making more videos like this one, and making a video like this took me quite some time, so it's a way for me to see that you want to see more content like this. So let's go into the diagram right now. So the first part is the incoming call received when the caller calls the number. And in there, we will call directly a webhook in order for us to get the assistant. And we're not just getting the settings of the assistant, but we are also saving the phone number. So in the database of the leads that we can see right here, you will have the phone number of the person. You won't have any name or any property or viewing date or anything else, but we will have the phone number in there. And this allows the real estate company to get all of the different phone numbers that have been calling them. Once this happens, we will also get all of the different settings that have been made inside Vapi. And after that, we are able to greet the caller and ask how the assistant can help. This will also allow us to inject the first name of the person in case it is in the database already. If the person already called before, we will be able to know their name and therefore say, hey Donna, how can I help you today, for example. So once this happens, the AI voice assistant will ask the address of the property that the person is interested in to get more information or book a viewing. So in that case, the caller will simply give the property address, and then the AI voice assistant will tell the user that the assistant is currently searching for it. And in order to search for it, we will call a second function that is get property details, that is another webhook on make. And that get property detail hook will return the details of the specific property that the user has been asking from the address. So it will do like an address matching and figuring out, okay, which property the user is actually asking about and returning that one property. So then after it found it, it will ask the user if they have any question about the property or if they want to book an inspection. If the user asks more details about the property, it will automatically use the different information that have been retrieved from the get property detail function before. And it will use that as the context and answer the question into a loop. So it will keep answering question until the user asks explicitly or the AI says, hey, do you want to book an inspection? You have been asking several questions now. Do you want to book an inspection? Once this happens, the caller will ask to book the inspection and will give all of the different details that the function needs to book the inspection. So there is another book inspection function on make, and that book inspection function needs the name of the person, the property ID, which has been retrieved already before. When the user was giving the address, it automatically returned the property ID. So that's not something that is going to be asked to the user. And also asking which viewing time is more suitable for the person. Once that happens, it will call the make book inspection webhook. And that webhook will automatically save all of this information into the Airtable database as a lead. So it's basically this one right here. And once that happens, it will return a successful booking call from the make function book inspection. Once that has been added to the database, it will return a successful booking response. And then the AI agent will be able to ask if they need any help with anything else. If the users say yes, then we go back to the beginning when we ask which property they are interested in or wants to know more information about. Otherwise, we will simply say thanks to the caller and end the call. There's something really important to note here is that once the call is ended, it will call again the GetAssistant make webhook with the transcript of the whole conversation. And that will be saved directly inside Airtable as well. So that's actually the third tab here, transcript, where we can see all of the different transcripts. And this is really, really useful for the developer building the AI voice agent, because you can see what happened during the conversation and why it might have not worked as expected. But also for the real estate agent to be able to see the persons and what they asked explicitly in the conversation, to see if they are more interested into school catchments, for example, or more into other topics. In order to create the voice assistant, we will be using a tool called Vapi. You will find a link in the description of the video for you to register. This video is not sponsored by Vapi, but this will be an affiliate link, so I will get a commission every time you register through it. So if you want to help me with the YouTube channel, I would highly appreciate if you could use that link rather than using just vapi.ai, which in the end is exactly the same. Now let's dive into the tool and see how to set it up. So the first thing that you will see here when you go to the platform and assistant on the left is that you have the list of all of the different assistants that you created. And in this case here, I will talk about Emily because Emily is the one I used for this video. And at the top here, you can see the name of the assistant. You can directly call it inside the tool by clicking here to talk with Emily. And here you can also see the ID of the voice assistant. We will come back to that later. What's pretty good here is that you can see the cost of the assistant per minute. So here in this case, it's 14 cents per minute. And you can see where the money is going. So in this case, 5 cents is going to Vapi, 1 cent is going to the transcriber, some is going into GPT 3.5 Turbo, and the rest is going to the text-to-speech. You can also see the latency on the right, and this is really important because you want to have this as low as possible to make the conversation feel natural. In this case here, it's 850 milliseconds, and you can also see where the latency comes from. This is really, really useful if you want to figure out how to improve your latency and at the same time improve the cost, because These are two main important things that you want to consider when you are building a voice assistant. And then you have the model. So in this case here, I can set up the first message. I set it up to this first message because we will see later why. But basically from make, I will be able to add some variables directly here and replace the different variables. So the message, the first message will be directly handled in make and will be replaced right here. Then I have the system prompt. We will come back to that in a sec. Then you have the provider on the right, which here is OpenAI, and the model is GPT 3.5 Turbo. So this is what is going to be used to create the message and answer, and then that will be transformed to voice with another tool. And finally, you can add some knowledge base. So if you want to add some documents about the company, for example, the opening time or the closing time, or some address or information, you can directly add it in here. Then you have the temperature, the maximum amount of token, and if you want it to detect emotion. In my case here, I decided to leave it default, but you can play around and test and see what's better for you. And then you have the system prompt. So here is where you will define your big prompt and exactly what is the assistant about, what it should do, the different steps, how it should act, and so on. So let's dive into this now. The first thing that I want to do here is define a role, because I want the voice assistant to know what are their roles. And I say, you are Emily, an assistant for Dream Home Realtors in Sydney. You assist clients with inquiry about property listing and schedule inspections. And then you have the task. So here I specify the different steps that I want the voice agent to do. So the first step will be to greet the caller by their name, otherwise request their name. The second one is to ask them what they need assistance with and say that the assistant can either answer questions about a property or book an inspection. Then I will say to ask for the address of the property they are interested in, and so on and so on. I will also tell them which functions to use in order to get the property details, for example. So here I will specifically say, use the get property details function to fetch details about the property. So that's something really important so that the assistant knows which function to use, even though it's kind of by default, but I really like to have it written into the prompt to make it even more obvious. And then at the bottom here, I have some specific things. So here I will say, for example, you operate in Sydney's time zone, or keep interactions concise, clear, empathetic, and customer focused. So all of these are really important to give the tone, so that the assistant knows what tone to use and how to interact with the user. And also at the bottom, I added something that is really important that helps a lot, is to say that before calling any function, tell the user you need a bit of time to process their request. This is really important to avoid this really awkward silence while they start the function, because otherwise it doesn't do anything and it's just wait. And it can be really weird for the user to just wait and not know what's happening. So in this way, the assistant will say, please wait a moment, or please wait a sec, or give me a sec, while they are calling the different functions. So for example, to book the inspection or to get the property details. Of course, this prompt is for real estate, but you can pretty much adapt it to any businesses or any use case that you need, and just have to change the different orders and change what you expect the assistant to do. The second tab here, transcriber, is about transcribing the voice of the user, of the caller, into text to then be sent to OpenAI. The third tab is voice, and this tab is really important because it lets you decide which voice you want to give to the agent. And you have multiple choices of providers. You have, for example, the OpenAI one, the DeepGram one, Azure, 11 Labs. And even though 11 Labs is a bit more expensive, I have to admit, but the quality is 10 times better. So I would highly recommend you to use 11 Labs. That's what I've been using. It's a bit tricky to find really good Australian voice, but I find that Matilda is pretty good. Otherwise, if you're searching for British English or American English, you have way more choices. You can also select this add voice ID manually and then go through 11 Lab and select a voice that you like and then paste the ID here. And also you can add your own voice if you want to by simply going to 11 Labs, recording your voice, and then putting the ID here. I haven't tried that, but I know that this is also an option. Then you have to decide a model. So in this case, I select 11 Turbo V2. And then you have additional configurations. So here you can set up a background sound. So for example, if you select office here, you will hear a background sound of an office. This can be useful if you want to make it more real, but in this case, I decided to turn it off. The next option is punctuation boundaries. And this is something that make your agent way more natural. I haven't been using that before, but I recently discovered it. And I have to admit, it really improved the quality of it. So what it's gonna do basically is it's gonna add punctuation and tones on the following symbols that you add here. So for example, here I added a comma or a dot or a mark point, and all of this will make the AI have a way more natural voice. What you can also do in your prompt is you can tell them to add some specific punctuations or specific symbols, like for example, here you have some pipes and some other type of symbols, or a full comma that will stop and wait for a few seconds. So this is really useful if you want to make it more natural. And I would just advise you to put some basic punctuations like comma, mark point, and dot, which will really help you to make it sound more natural at the beginning. Under punctuation boundaries, you have 3 other options for filler injection enabled, back channeling enabled, or background denoising enabled. I've tried to play around with them, but didn't find them really useful. So in this case, I just turned them off. Under that, you have stability, which allows you to make it either more expressive or more monotonous. Putting it to an extreme, you will have something completely unreliable. And on the other side, you will have something completely monotonous. So I think like somewhere in the middle between 0.5 and 0.6 is what I would recommend. Under that, you have clarity and similarity. For that, I will recommend to use 0.75. I've been playing around and I feel like this is the best value. You can also play around if you want to try and see what adapts best to your business and to your use case. But for me, 0.75 it's what was the best. And then after that, you have some other parameters that I would just leave it like it was, like default. The next tab is functions, but I will dive into that later in this video. For now, I will just show you advanced and analysis. In advanced, what you have is some privacy parameters. So I would highly recommend you to turn on recording enabled. You might have to tell the user while they're calling that they are being recorded for legal reasons, but I find it really helpful in order for you to debug and see what happens, because if you go into the call logs here and you scroll down, you can see all of the different calls that have been happening. And you can also listen to it if you enable that option. So that's really useful as well for debugging and knowing what happened and if the quality of your calls is good. So if you go back to advanced here, the HIPAA compliance, this is what you would enable if you want none of the recording to happen and also none of the conversation to be recorded. That might be required for some assistant that has to deal with some private data. So I would leave that up to you, but for now I would just not enable that and just enable recordings. After the privacy, you have the pipeline configuration. Here I mostly left everything intact like as it was before. So by default, I would highly recommend you to not really change much in there, except if you really know what you're doing or if you want to do some experiment. Under the pipeline configuration, you have all of the different messaging details. So for the server URL, you don't need to put anything here. For the client messages, also don't need to put anything here. In my case, I just left it by default, but this is not used anyway. And finally, in server messages, you want to have end of call report, status update, and function call, as this is when your hooks, your web hooks are going to be called. And if, for example, you don't have end of call report, then it won't call anything at the end of the call, and you won't be able to have the transcript. So this is something really important to add if it's not there yet. Then you have the voicemail message. So this is something that the AI will say when someone calls and get into the voicemail. And finally, the end call message, which is the message that the call will always end with. So the assistant with their voice will say that message at the end of the conversation. Now that we have set up our assistant, the next step is to create a phone number that is going to be linked to that specific assistant. And for that, you have to go here to phone numbers on the left. And you have 2 options. The first option is to create a phone number via Vapi. So you will click here on add and you will directly put the area code and it will create for you a phone number, and you will have to pay $2 per month directly on Vapi. There is another option here where you can import a Twilio number as well. So you will have to put the Twilio phone number account SID, the auth token, and a label, and you will click on import from Twilio. In my case, I already have my number. Now what I can do is I can link my assistant directly to my phone number by selecting right here. But as I was mentioning before, we have a different flow that we want to do. And what we want to do is that we want to save the phone number inside our Airtable. And if I do it directly like this, then I won't be able to do that. I can still do it with function calling, we will see that later, but it's much better to create the assistant directly inside Make with a webhook so that you can add some variables and change a little bit things depending on some condition. Like for example, you can inject the name of the person if the person had already called and change the first message, and I'm gonna show you exactly that. So in order to do that, you have to go here to the profile and then you have to click on API keys. Here you will see the server URL of the webhook that you have to copy paste from Make. So now if I switch to Make, and this is the webhook that we're gonna be using in Make, it looks a bit complicated, but I promise you it's not. You will just have to change a couple of small things in order for it to work. So let's dive into it. The first part here is the webhook, and as you can see here, there is the URL of the webhook that you will have to copy address to clipboard and then paste it directly here. This will allow to link the phone number directly into the Make so that it will go through all of these different flow and then at the end return the assistant that will then be linked to the assistant you created. After the webhook, you can see that there is a router, and this will simply check some conditions to either go up or go down. It will go up here if there is an assistant request, so that means that the user is calling for the first time. The second one is if end of the call report, and that's what happens after the call to send back the transcript. We will see that later. The first thing I'm doing with the Airtable is I'm checking if the message.call.customer.number is already inside the database. This will allow to return the name and the phone number to the next steps of the flow. And if there is no phone number, then we will add that phone number directly into the Airtable database. Now, whether there is a phone number or not, we will continue the flow, and this here is setting up the API key from Vapi. So for that, you just have to click on this and paste here the value that you're getting from your dashboard that you're getting from here, private API key. You just copy it and you just paste it right here. The next step is to paste the assistant ID that you're gonna get from the assistant right here. So it's basically the ID that you have right here. You can just click on copy assistant ID right there and paste it here. So as you see, it's pretty easy to set up. Then you don't really have to worry about the next steps. It's basically fetching all of the different parameters of the assistant and adding some default variables. So that's what we are going to see here, where here we are adding the first name, for example, the first message and the current date. So let's take this example of this first message right here. So this is what you have here where I set it up like that. So it will basically replace all of these different variables to the values that you are putting on Make. And this is really powerful because you can add the opening times, for example, or a lot of different data that you have. And this logic here is basically adding different first message depending on if we have the name of the person or not. So in this case here I have hello name, this is Emily from Dream Home Realtors, how can I assist you today? Otherwise it will be asking for the first name. So hello, this is Emily from Dream Home Realtors, who am I speaking with? That's really powerful because you can really tweak and add whatever phrases you want and add whatever logic you want directly from within Make. You can also set the first name, set the current date, or any other information that you want. And that's pretty much it. Like all of the rest here is basically taking care of making it work. And in order for you to use this template, you can simply go here and click on import blueprint, and you will see the links of all of the blueprint directly in the description of this video. You will just have to import it and change 2 or 3 steps that I just showed you. Now you should be able to run your assistant and have basic interaction with it. But we want to add some more capabilities, such as booking an inspection or get property details. And in order to do that, we are using function calling, and that can be directly set up inside Vapi. So let's switch to the functions tab and see what happens there. And here you can see that I have two different functions. The first one is to book an inspection, and the second one is to get the property details. Here I put the function name, which is book inspection. I put the function description, which is use this to book an inspection to view a specific property, and then the name, the property ID, and the date and time. Each of these properties are strings, and here you can add a description of what they are about. Then there is also another function here, which is get property details, which is set up the exact same way. You put the function name, function description, and the properties. Here you can see that address is a string, and that's what is going to be called first. If we go back to our diagram right here, first we're going to call get property details to return the ID of that property, and then we can use that ID to call the second function here, which has a property ID that is the property that the user is talking about, to book the inspection. Here we can see that there is a server URL, which is the webhook on make, which works similarly to the GetAssistant that we've just seen. And here you will just put the link directly of the webhook. So here I will put the link of the get property details webhook, and here I will put the link of the book inspection webhook. Now let's see the setup on make. So the first one is get property details, and in this case I wanted to make the video pretty straightforward and easy, so it will only work with one property and it will be extremely simple. But of course here what you will want to do is you will want to fetch your Airtable database or any database, do some similarity matching, and then returning the property that the user has been asking about. So here we can see that there is the webhook address that you can copy and paste directly right here. And then it directly returns the response, which is a JSON structured, which has the address of the property, the description of the property, the viewing time of the property right here, inspections, and also the neighborhood. So this of course will be returned by the database, but to make it simpler here, I have directly returned that response. And that's pretty much it for the get property detail. Now, I also wanted to show you the book inspection, which this time is a real implementation. So in this case here, I will also have my webhook, and here this is the address of the webhook that you will also paste into the function calling. Here it will search for the records, so here it will directly use the property ID of the previous function to search inside the table and return the property that the user wants to book an inspection for. Here we have a router that will check if the property listing was found or not. If it's not found, it will return an error. Otherwise, it will search for that specific user on Airtable, so it will search for the phone number. And after that, it does an upsert. So if it finds the user, it will update the row with the inspection time and the property ID. Otherwise, it will simply create a new line and add all of the data that it needs. So the name of the person, the phone number of the person, the ID of the property, and the date and time of the viewing inspection. Now this will be automatically saved by Airtable, and then it will go to the next step, which is the webhook response that will say the booking was successful. Here I showed you two different functions. If you create Assistant for your own business, you will be able to add your own functions and decide exactly what you want them to do. You could add some new features such as sending automatic emails, SMS, interacting with the Google Calendar, or connect to your database and the tools that your business is using. Let me know in the comment if you want me to dive deeper into one of these features or any other that is blocking you, and I will try to make a video for it. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out either in the comments or by email. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.